Okay, we've got calcium carbonate, otherwise known as limestone. Okay, it's impure limestone is calcium carbonate. So this is just a picture from the internet of some limestone rock. You found this in minerals in the mountains, and here in Cape Town, South Africa, we've got quite a lot of beautiful limestone rock. Now, if I had to heat this, okay, if I had to thermally, which means heat, a thermal decomposition reaction, in other words, you heat this calcium carbonate, it's going to form a substance called calcium oxide, and it's going to release carbon dioxide. So you can see over here in this diagram, I've got the thermal decomposition of calcium carbonate, which is this compound over here, calcium carbonate. Let's say that we weighed the calcium carbonate and we said that we had 25 grams of calcium carbonate, right? How much calcium oxide would I make, and how much, in terms of the grams, how much carbon dioxide would I make if I've got 25 grams of calcium carbonate? Okay, so this is a typical question that you might get in your tests and exams. Okay, so what do we do first? Remember, always we are working out what does 1 mole of calcium carbonate weigh. Okay, 1 mole of calcium carbonate, what does it weigh? What do we need to do? We need to go and work out the relative formula mass of calcium carbonate. We've got calcium, it is 40. Okay, let's write this over here, 40. Carbonate, well, carbonate is made up of carbon and, just double check, 3 oxygens. Okay, 3 oxygens. So you got 1 calcium, which is 40, plus 1 carbon, which is 12, plus 3 oxygens, brackets 16 times 3. Get your calculator ready, get 16 times 3 going in your calculator, and you've got it nicely. We've got, let's just quickly crunch this in my calculator, plus 12 plus 40, always good to get things accurate. So calcium carbonate's relative formula mass is 100 grams. Okay, that's 1 mole. 1 mole equals 100 grams. Okay, so 1 mole of calcium carbonate, let's get it back here, is 100 grams. Okay, now remember, how many grams are we working with? We're not working with 100. What did the question say? The question said 25 grams. So it's almost like this 100 is turning into 25 grams. We will now be able to get how many moles is 25 grams of calcium carbonate. So how do we get from 100 to 25? We'll simply divide, and what you'll get is you can divide this by 4, right? Another way to say this, a way that I prefer, is timesing. So how can you times 100 by something to get 25? And you guessed it, you can times it by 0.25. So times 0.25. If you type that into your calculator, you'll get 25 grams. So what do we do to this side? Now let's do this in black. 1 times by a certain number. What number are we timesing it by? We're timesing it by the same number, times 0.25. 1 times anything is itself, so 0.25 moles of CaCO3, calcium carbonate. This is a bit squashed. Let's just move this to the left hand side. Don't forget the 3. Come on, 3. There we go. Okay, so that's how many moles there are. There are 0.25 moles in 25 grams of calcium carbonate. Now here is the trick with equations. The trick with equations is to look back at the original equation. Okay, so what do we have now? Okay, let's look at the original equation and write a new equation below. So we've got 0.25 moles of calcium carbonate. Okay, and this is the product. If we thermally decompose this, if we heat this up, how many moles of calcium oxide are we going to produce, and how many moles of carbon dioxide? Well, you need to go back and look at the ratios of your original equation. And can you see that 1 mole originally will produce 1 mole of calcium oxide and 1 mole of carbon dioxide? So if we've got 0.25 moles, because we've used 25 grams, how many moles will there be of calcium oxide? 0.25 and 0.25. Okay, so now the question might say, okay, well, then how many grams? We know how many grams are formed from calcium carbonate. We've got 25 grams of calcium carbonate. Okay, how many grams will there be of calcium oxide? Well, again, what you have to do here is say, well, what does 1 mole of calcium oxide weigh? 1 mole of calcium oxide, remember calcium, we need to work out what its molar mass is for 1 mole. Remember, calcium weighed 40 and oxygen is 16. So the molar mass, or the relative formula mass for calcium oxide is 56 grams. So 1 mole of calcium oxide is 56 grams. We want to know how many grams does 0.25 moles of calcium oxide weigh? Well, how do I go from 1 to 0.25? I just simply times by 0.25. I can do the same thing to this side. I can times this side by 0.25. So you type into your calculator 56 times 0.25 and I get 14 grams. 14 grams. So if we go back to this equation, 25 grams of calcium carbonate is going to make 14 grams of calcium oxide. You can't just say it's also going to make 14 grams of carbon dioxide, because you need to work out what 1 mole of carbon dioxide, what it weighs. So let's work that out. We know carbon dioxide has carbon, which is 12, plus 2 oxygen, 16 times 2. So it's 12 plus 32. This is going to give me 44, right? 44 grams. So 1 mole of carbon dioxide weighs 44 grams. But now we need to work out, well, we're not working with 1 mole of carbon dioxide, are we? We're working with, if you look at my, sorry, that's 14 up there. We're working with 0.25 from this worked out equation. Okay, so 0.25, same thing's happening here, 0.25 moles of carbon dioxide. How do I get from there to there? I times by, you guys have got this now, 0.25, same thing on this side. I'm going to times by 0.25, so 44 times 0.25, 44 times 0.25 gives me 11 grams of carbon dioxide. Let's do it in black, let's make it nice. Is 11 grams. Awesome.